Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm Jeff Pender, joined this morning with my colleague, Michael Goldberg. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
We have a special guest today, very special guest, Mr. James Carville, the Ragin Cajun himself, well-known political consultant, author, lawyer, actor occasionally, I believe. Mr. Carville, thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, I'm happy to do it. First of all, I'm a big fan of Mississippi Today, and as people know, I spent a great deal of time in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, so glad to be on the show.
Yes, sir. And if you could tell it what that connection, I know you've had a place in Bay St. Louis for quite a while. What's that Mississippi connection?
Some people say it's Mississippi. I think it's the 65th parish that Hancock is, but okay, technically it's Mississippi, so we'll go with that. You know, as a kid, we'd go to the vacation was a day and a half in Biloxi, all right? And we'd go through there, and the Mississippi coast to me when I was 11 years old, you'd have thought it was the French Riviera. Right. And you know, my wife and I moved, and I said, it's an hour and 1 minute from my house on Girard Street. Okay, so most people think, oh man, you went to Mississippi. I said, look, I'm actually closer to my house in Mississippi than you are to Dulles Airport.
Yes, sir.
Or faster, maybe not closer, but faster.
I know in the past you've not only, I believe, kept tabs on Mississippi politics, maybe dabbled in them a little bit.
A little bit, pretty.
Anything on the horizon that you think you might get involved in?
Yes.
We might have a Senate race.
Yes, and I think Scott Collins is going to be the Democratic nominee, and I think he's going to be a strong nominee. I really put a lot into Brandon Presley's gubernatorial election. We lost, but we lost by like a couple of points or something. It wasn't very much. And, you know, it's funny because the word to me is Mississippi. I grew up next to it. When you say Mississippi to people on the East Coast, they go, oh, no, you would never win there. I said, why don't you go look at the election returns? And we've actually been pretty close. It's not, when Trump's on the ballot, it's a little bit more. But I don't think she's strong at all. I think she's particularly weak. And Scott's a really good candidate. People be excited about it.
I know, though, in the past, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith has had what appears to be the golden ticket in Mississippi, a Trump endorsement early and often. Is that something likely to change in Mississippi or the Deep South anytime soon?
Okay, first, if you do the basic math in Mississippi, the population of Mississippi is actually 39% black. Now, they vote 31. So you have all of that slack, potential slack, right? If in the thought on the Democratic side, to the extent we do anything in Mississippi, is we run the most moderate white candidate we can get. And Scott is black, but I think he's a pretty moderate guy. Yeah, you know, he's a prosecutor in a red county. And I think hopefully that he can get that 31 up to 35, maybe 35 and a half. And if you start doing that, well, you're close because, you know, 22% of the whites in Mississippi are Democrats. 22% is a lot when you're getting, you know, 92% of the other side. So if you do the back of the envelope calculation, you can see what numbers you got to come up with. In Mississippi, unlike, say, Georgia or Texas, it's pretty much a black-white state. You may have some Hispanics, obviously, but it's not a voting block that you got to pay when you're doing your math a lot of attention to.
James, just to dig a little bit deeper on that point, you know, Mississippi does have the highest percentage of black voters of any state in the country. And
population.
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
They don't vote.
Potential voters. In the 2024 election, we saw President Trump make significant inroads with black voters, and there does seem to be in recent election cycles a bit of a sort of the parties are getting less racially polarized. So what should that sort of tell Democrats in Mississippi about their kind of approach going forward as far as selecting candidates, their messaging, et cetera, when you're looking at a sort of two-party system that isn't as racially polarized as it once was, perhaps?
I wouldn't declare a trend based on one election. It was, and we did not do as well among Black folks, both as a percent and both as on turnout too. We had lower turnout and we got the lower percent we needed to get. I wouldn't be surprised if 2028 you revert more toward the norm. We had a disastrous nominating process, and a lot of Black males feel lectured to, and I can totally understand why they do. And so much of elite Democratic messaging is you shouldn't eat hamburgers, you shouldn't watch football, you shouldn't drink beer. The guy's like, he's working changing tires in Gulfport 13 hours a day. Shit, he wants to go home and get a beer and a hamburger and watch a game and, maybe hit on his girlfriend. I mean, who can blame him? And then he's got the NPR people telling him that he's an immoral, rotten, lazy, sexist person. And like, man, get out of my goddamn life. And I don't blame it. You ever tried changing a tire in Gulfport, Mississippi on July the 26th? Can I tell you something? It's hot and it's hard. And I don't need NPR lecturing me about how misogynistic I am.
Well, kind of on the other hand, too, I don't know how it's going to ultimately play in the Deep South, but a lot of what Trump's doing right now doesn't appear to be addition. Seems like he's seeing what large groups he can piss off. The other thing to remember about Mississippi,
it's not overly educated state, but there are college-educated people in South Haven, in Oxford, and Starkville, Columbus, and the coast. I mean, Jackson, there are pockets of it, so it counts for something. But who's going to really get hurt here? Two of the giant parts of the Mississippi economy are, one, Delta farmers. Can you imagine how tariffs could possibly help Delta farmers? No, you can't. It's easy to imagine how tariffs really hurt Delta farmers. And the second thing is the Port of Gulfport is one of the faster growing ports on the Gulf Coast, maybe the whole country for all I know. And port traffic is down. So what I would say to the people in Mississippi that voted for Trump, as opposed to telling them how stupid they are, which we both know that fits the bill in some cases, maybe more than some. But I would say you've been betrayed. You thought that you were going to get something, and what did you get? You hurt, what most essential agriculture part of our state. You hurt our biggest and most prominent port, and now you're coming in and by the way, this tax bill, the amount of money that goes to people making over $500,000 a year is being paid for by cuts to Medicaid and food assistance. That's going to kill Mississippi. You know how many people in Mississippi fit that bill that own Medicaid, that depend on it? That keep these, and you can forget about the hospital in Brookhaven. You can forget about the hospital in Corinth, okay? You can forget about the hospital in Water Valley. They're going to have to close if they don't have these Medicaid payments as part of their revenue flow. And what's going to happen, and I tell people this all the time, if I live in Corinth, Mississippi, okay, I have health insurance, all right. Yeah, I'm a lawyer or accountant or whatever I am, or maybe I work for Alcorn County Sheriff's Department. Well, if the hospital closes and I have a medical emergency, where am I going to go? I might have to go, if they have one in Holly Springs, I might get there, but hell, I might have to go to Memphis, get a heart attack treated. I mean, people got to think of the ramifications of what it's going to be like. Of course, for the underserved population that gets, some health care, and also for people who have insurance or the kinds of people that are able to afford it. Or if you don't have it, it don't matter if you can afford it. If the hospital is closed, you got to find another one. And people need to think about that, because this is really going to cause that. And they're not through with the distribution tables yet, but as they come out, now you got one other problem. I think people can understand that. You're starting to see the yield on a 10-year Treasury go up. So what does that mean? I'll tell you exactly what it means. Let's take people y'all might know, young people coming up, maybe somebody graduated from Millsaps or the state, I don't know, whatever. And they've been out for 5 or 6 years and they really want to buy a house. You know what mortgage rates are now? 7%. You know where they're going? Up. Why are they going up? Because the price of a 10-year or the yield on a 10-year Treasury is going up like crazy, because we're going to be issuing so much debt. And at the same time, I'm not being too technical here, our currency is dropping in value. So the Chinese government or Japanese government, or people who buy these things in huge bulk, they're going to need more of an interest rate to take that risk. And that's going to cause everything to go up in a large part. That's going to be driven by, they just okayed, according to them, 2.1 trillion in excess spending. Most people think it's when you add the interest on the debt and you add all the other stuff, we're already way over 3 trillion. To add to what we got now, that's 3 trillion on top of the 30 trillion. So you're getting, this is the deal. We're going to cut your health care. All right. We're not going to give anybody a hand that's out of a job and needs some food assistance or nutrition for children. And oh, by the way, we're going to give the fat cat on the other side of town a $100,000 tax break, and your interest rates on everything, anytime you want to buy something, are going up by 500 basis points. I don't know how you'd say it. It's a raw deal for the country. It's a raw deal for Mississippi. And it's a raw deal for most of the people. Look, if you make $750,000 a year and you're looking at this show, you're probably going to get a little more money in your pocket. That can't be denied. But you may not have, if you get sick, you may not have a hospital to go to. So, and you can't take it with you.
Well, we've seen in Mississippi in the Deep South, though, for quite a while now, people not voting their pocketbooks. Do you think we're at an inflection point? I know you once famously ran a campaign that drove that point home.
So we did everything we could to lose this election. Okay, I'm just going to be, all right? And look, when I say, it's just a misogynistic and racist country we live in. Okay, I spent a lot of time in Mississippi. I'm not going to tell you there's no racism in Mississippi. That'd be stupid to say, okay? Yeah, or misogyny, or anywhere else. That's not that's not my point. But so at each point, I vehemently pushed back when they started this identity language. I hate the word, but I'll use it because it's common. This is all woke shit. Nobody liked it. No one talked like that. And they had this image of the Democrats being a smarty pants coastal party that thought they were better than everybody else. Well, when you start using words like Latinx and defund the police or communities or whatever, you're really confirming an existing suspicion in people's mind. So that was a really stupid thing. I mean, really, really stupid. So you have about 80% of the country on New Year's Day of 2024 thought he was too old to be president. And so, of course, he has that disastrous debate. Now, his book, my reaction to all of this, to the public, water's wet. We already knew that. You think we didn't know that before? And so then we still could have won had they opened the process up. And my idea was to take President Clinton, President Obama, put them in 4 different venues around the country, invite 6 or 7 potential candidates and have town halls, and then go open it up and get the best person. Well, look, we played our Super Bowl with our 7th string quarterback. who hadn't taken a snap in a life, and was all of a sudden, here, you take the ball. And we came within a point and a half. Supposed we had played the third string quarterback. We might have won by 4.
James, on top of the cultural minefield surrounding identity politics and the economic forces that you were mentioning, whoever secures the nomination for U.S. Senate will also have to contend with the state party here in Mississippi. And at Mississippi Today over the years, we've reported on some of the internal turmoil that we've seen in the state Democratic Party, the infrastructure here. We've seen.
You mean there is an infrastructure?
Right.
Sort of case in point.
I've yet to detect one, but please proceed.
Right. And, to that end, the infrastructure or lack thereof, we saw, I think during the first Trump administration in Alabama, a similar situation unfold. Senator Doug Jones trying to sort of get involved and force some changes. But what would you say to whoever the candidate is as far as, and of course, that's not to say there aren't good people working for the state party here, but how would you advise a potential candidate to navigate the kind of lack of maybe organizational strength that we've seen over the last few years?
Probably. Right. This Mississippi party is broken, not very effective. I can explain it to you. They have no power. So if I'm Mississippi Power and I got a $10,000 budget, I'm going to give $500 to the Democrats and $9,500 to the Republicans because the Republicans have the power. If I'm the realtors in Mississippi, if I'm the car dealers, if I'm the Soybean Growers Association, if I'm the Port Association. So it's hard for them to be effective under the best of circumstances because they have very little funding. And I don't know how important, to the extent that there is some kind of structure, you might want to use it for some reason, but I just don't think we're going to have a very strong state party between now and November of next year. But we're coming within 4 or 3.5 points without that, so maybe we can get another half point being a little bit more effective. But it's right. It's terribly ineffective, and it has no ability to really raise money on any scale.
Well, Schumer and some others have vowed they're going to pay more attention to Mississippi.
They will not. Scott will not lose this race for lack of money. All right, a Democrat has not lost a Senate race in this century for a lack of money. Scott's going to be funded. Now, how they put it in terms of, because what we're really talking about, let's be clear here, we talk about black turnout and the best device to do that. It's probably not going to be the party. He's probably going to have to build, of course, Benny is going to be part of any conversation, as he well should be. But you're going to have to, whatever we built before is not working. We have a potential to get 39 and we clock it in at 31. So let's say what we doing, let's get this thing to 35.5. And it's going to be hard. And you're not just going to be able to show up and go to Sunday morning church in a Delta, okay? And that's not the way it's going to work. Yeah, and they have to reinvent the wheel and have to figure out how to energize and get the black voters in Mississippi to see, in particular younger voters, that they have a real stake in this. Now, I think Trump is helping them, and I think as you put this. If we're very effective in how we communicate and what they're doing and who they represent and how they betrayed you. You thought he was going to help you. You didn't know he was going to take your hospital away. You didn't know that. You didn't know he was going to take all your money and give it to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, but now you know it.
James, to that end, as far as thinking through how to ensure that these messages actually reach voters, in the wake of the 2024 election, there's a lot of discussion around, sort of, do Democrats need their own Joe Rogan? That's kind of a stand-in for assessing the ways in which maybe Democrats were ill-equipped to deal with the media environment as it currently stands. What are your thoughts on how Democrats need to, where they should direct resources in Mississippi and more broadly, what they should be building?
Very good question. So the first thing you have to do is assess where you are, and you need to make an honest assessment. All right. The cable TV assessment of the Democratic Party, and 80% of the commentary. It had a terrible election. It got slaughtered. We don't even know if the Democratic Party is even relevant anymore, what it's doing. The truth of the matter, I hate to piss on anybody's parade because I'm from New Orleans and we like parades. The truth about it is we played our 7th-string quarterback and we lost by 1.5. We actually picked up a House seat. Now, that's not a very good election, but in terms of where you start, that's hardly catastrophic. I mean, this is the closest election we've had in I don't know how long. And we lost. I'm not, it wasn't stolen and nothing happened. It was, they got more votes. They get more votes than the Democrats did. But I think 26 is hard. I'm a big believer in the big person theory of politics, that we're not so much motivated by issues or causes or anything. Personalities make us, gripping personalities define who we are politically. So for me, I'm 14 years old. John Kennedy comes up. I'm a Catholic kid in South Louisiana. I'm already pro-civil rights. And he's talking about this. And I go, gee, I like that guy. I want to do what he does. Or some people saw Reagan, they had the same reaction to him, or Clinton or Obama. We haven't had an inspirational presidential candidate since 2012. So we're going to have one in 2028. It's almost certain. I wish I knew who, but I don't. But I could pick any card of 6 or 7 people, and they're going to be really good communicators. So we got to start building that, and we're not going to have that in 26, but I think we can do a lot better than people think. I do.
Well, Mr. Carville, we appreciate you coming on, and I guess we're going to have to call Scott Colomb and let him know that you announced his campaign.
Yeah. Well, I'm bashful, I don't know if he knows, but I think Scott's, let's put it this way, I think he's given it prayerful consideration. Is that what you do? I got so many friends. I tell you, the Wright Thompson piece in Sports Illustrated on the Boston Celtics is maybe as good a long-form journalism I've read in a century. It's literally that good. And there's terrific people in Mississippi. I got a lot of really good friends there. I don't know if there's a person in modern American politics that I admired more than Governor William Leonard. I think he was almost a personification of what a real public servant should be, from his time in the Army in World War II, through his governorship, through everything about him. Mississippi is very fortunate to have somebody like Governor Leonard's history. We just got to find the next William Leonard here somewhere. It ain't Tate Reeves, I can tell you that.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate you joining us today.
I love to chew the fat,
Sure.
You know how they know the toothbrush was invented in Mississippi? Because anywhere else they'd have called it a teeth brush.
All right.
I got to get Louisiana boy's got to get one lick in before he goes.
Sure.
Take care, gentlemen.
We won't talk about LSU or anything then. How about that?
Yeah.